Do you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Caught in a fiery showdown with Ilhan Omar, former U.S. official Elliot Abrams faces the heat as she unleashes every accusation from Iran-Contra to war crimes in El Salvador. Tension explodes when Omar demands yes or no answers about genocide, human rights, and U.S. foreign policy. Adams dodges, Omar presses harder, and the entire hearing spirals into a brutal clash the establishment didn't want exposed.
Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your testimonies. Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question. That was not a question. I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a question.
Committee can attack
on February 8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
That was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S.-trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy. That's a fabulous achievement.
Yes or no, do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement that happened under our watch?
That is a ridiculous question, and I
yes or no?
No.
I will take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Yes or no, would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld, is a fair question. Because the American people want to know that anytime we engage a country, that we think about what our actions could be and how we believe our values are being furthered. That is my question. Will you make sure that human rights are not violated and that we uphold international and human rights?
I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that. The question I had for you is that does the interest of the United States include protecting human rights and include protecting people against genocide?
That is always the position of the United States.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
Walking into that hearing room, the atmosphere felt like it was about to crack open. Everyone knew Ilhan Omar came prepared for a fight, but nobody was ready for how fast she would put Elliot Abrams on the defensive. The moment her mic turned on, the tone shifted. She didn't waste a second. No warming up, no pleasantries, just straight into his 1,991 guilty plea for withholding information from Congress during the Iran-Contra affair. She laid it out bluntly. He lied to Congress, got caught, and then got bailed out by a presidential pardon. Adams tried to jump in, but Omar shut that down instantly. She made it clear that this wasn't going to be one of those hearings where a witness filibusters to dodge accountability. She reclaimed her time, took command of the room, and forced him to sit there and take every single word. Then she hit him with the part of his record that still haunts U.S. Foreign Policy Discussions El Salvador 1982. When she brought up the El Mozote massacre, the air in the room practically froze. Over 800 civilians slaughtered, children, toddlers killed by U.S. trained forces. And she reminded everyone that Adams once brushed those reports off as communist propaganda. Her voice didn't shake. She laid out the gruesome truth. Soldiers bragging about raping a 1-2-year-old girl before killing her. Entire families wiped out. She forced the room to hear it. She forced him to hear it. And Adams couldn't hide behind diplomatic language or sanitized history. The tension skyrocketed when Omar quoted him calling U.S. policy in El Salvador a fabulous achievement. That line burned. She demanded a yes or no answer. Did he still believe that? Adams tried to pivot, tried to explain, tried to dodge, but she boxed him in. She wanted accountability, not rehearsed talking points. The man refused to answer whether the massacre itself was a fabulous achievement, and his frustration started breaking through the polished facade. Then Omar pushed him into territory he absolutely did not want to enter, whether he would support armed groups committing war crimes if they aligned with U.S. interests. She pointed straight at Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, countries where U.S.-backed operations have long been criticized for horrific abuses. Adams stiffened. He refused to answer again, claiming her questions weren't real and accusing her of personal attacks. But the more he dodged, the worse it looked. Omar made it clear she wasn't asking hypotheticals. She was asking whether U.S. foreign policy has a habit of turning a blind eye to atrocities if the perpetrators are on our side. She framed it exactly the way millions of Americans see it. If the U.S. involves itself in another country, then basic humanity, basic values, basic human rights must be part of the equation. That's when she delivered the blow that couldn't be ignored, whether he would guarantee that U.S. interests never override the prevention of genocide. The room went silent. Adams couldn't dodge forever. He finally broke the rehearsed posture and delivered a generic diplomatic line claiming the U.S. point always prioritizes human rights and democracy. But everyone watching could see he didn't answer the real question. Omar pressed because the American people deserve clarity, not careful, sanitized language. By the time she yielded her time, Adams looked rattled, the committee was stunned, and the clash had already exploded across the internet. Omar didn't just question him, she cornered him. She exposed him. And she forced a conversation about what U.S. foreign policy has done and what it continues to justify in the name of interests. This wasn't a routine hearing. It was a political reckoning, a confrontation decades overdue. And the impact of that exchange is still echoing today.